Yeah.
Here we are, finally the time has come to talk about the latest from legendary filmmaker Martin Scorsese, this time being Killers of the Flower Moon, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and Lily Gladstone. This film follows the murders that took place on the Osage Reservation in Oklahoma in the 1920s, and the plot by William Hale and his accomplices to take over the oil money from the Osage people. Look, obviously, you guys know, if you've been watching this channel for quite some time, I am a huge Martin Scorsese fan, one of the greatest directors of all time. I mean, come on, I mean, that's pretty obvious. I feel like that's a no-brainer for anybody who loves movies, but Martin Scorsese has consistently been making great, thought-provoking movies for over 50 years, and now this is such a huge one because of the scope of it, but also the fact that his two legendary muses, Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, acting together for the first time in a Martin Scorsese film is pretty mind-blowing, to say the least. The fact that this actually happened after all these years, on top of the fact that this was actually my very first Scorsese film I saw in theaters, which is unbelievable because I've been following the guy for years, and his work has had such an impact on my life that I feel like I must have seen one of his movies in theaters beforehand, but no, this was the first one, and I sat there for over 3.5 hours, actually about 7 hours, because I saw it twice, and I will get into that. But look, I mean, this obviously was my most anticipated film of the year, if you remember, after Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And there should be no surprise of why I was excited for this film, for the reasons I said, and just the fact alone that it's a Martin Scorsese film. This was building up to be maybe the masterpiece of the year, I was thinking, because of all these ingredients that were put together and everybody that was involved. And as it stands, I really liked it. Here's the thing with this movie, because first, let me say, from a technical standpoint, this film is absolutely masterful. From start to finish, I mean, the proficiency that Martin Scorsese is working at 80 years old is so awe-inspiring and so unbelievable. Like, there is no doubt he's getting nominated for Best Director for this film, and for the screenplay by him and Eric Roth, which I think really is so well threaded throughout this entire runtime. It's kind of hard to remove anything from the script, and I think just from a storytelling standpoint, this is absolutely spectacular. The cinematography from Rodrigo Prieto, who's been having a great year with Barbie. I mean, this guy has been cleaning up in regards to the industry, getting some of the best work there is out there. But this is one of the best looking films of the year, maybe one of Martin Scorsese's best looking movies overall. Just the way, in a certain shots, just the way it captures fire. I've never really seen it done so beautifully. And of course you have the epic tracks, you know, akin to the tracking shots in Goodfellas with Copacabana. You know, you get those amazing fluid camera movements. And of course Thelma Schoonmaker has a bit to play with that in the editing, in the way these scenes are cut together. And so from that standpoint, I really can't knock this movie at all. And also the performances, I have to talk about them because, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, two of the greatest actors of all time, and here they are again. And I gotta say, Robert De Niro, once again, wishing that he was in more movies like this, wishing Scorsese directed him in more movies, because they hadn't collaborated since the 90s until they did The Irishman in 2019. So seeing him back together with Scorsese and working together so frequently as of late is really, really pleasing. And Robert De Niro turns in a stellar performance here. One of the most interesting performances that De Niro has done, but he is really the personification of evil in this film. And I will get into his character a bit later. Granted, I don't think he does a whole lot to really push him over the edge to win the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. But I do not see how he does not get nominated for a role like this for this specific film. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, yet again, I mean, you look at this guy's resume for the past 15 years or less, and the projects that he has picked were so carefully chosen, and you see how he has built his value over time to the point that people now see him as one of the greatest actors of all time. I mean, he'd been nominated for most of the films that he was in the last decade, so that says something alone. But yet again, here he is for the first time since Don't Look Up. And then I think before that, the last time we had seen him was like The Revenant, I think. So pretty crazy how scarce DiCaprio is. But that's the thing. When he delivers, you are looking forward to it. And my goodness, does he deliver here. Yet again, this is going to be an Oscar-nominated performance. Another notch in Leo's belt. And I think one of his most interesting performances, for sure. Because the character of Ernest Burkhart is one of the most loathsome and pitiful characters you will ever watch on screen. He is the definition of a loser. And I think the choices DiCaprio made in playing this very schlubbish character is really interesting. And I think he gets some moments, especially near the end of the film, that really just deliver on the acting and also the character work that really ties this whole movie together, you could say. And yeah, just yet again, one of the best performances of the year, I think that goes without saying. But the one I was the most impressed by throughout this entire film was Lily Gladstone as Molly Burkhart, who plays Leonardo DiCaprio's character's wife in this true crime story. My goodness, just first off, absolutely beautiful woman. But what she does with her face and her eyes really tells you everything you need to know about how this character is feeling, what she's internalizing in her head. The interactions between her and DiCaprio during their courtship in the first part of this movie is genuinely so incredible. Some of the best chemistry I've seen between any two actors this year. And I absolutely love seeing what she goes through in this film. Well, I don't mean in like love what she's going through, but I love what she does from an acting standpoint, because yet again, I'll say this again, when an actor can make me feel like they're either A, experiencing physical pain, or B, looking sickly, I think what Lily Gladstone here, like, you really believe that she is sick as this film goes on, and it's unbelievable to watch. It is such a genuine, authentic performance that says so much without saying anything, and I absolutely loved her work here. She is definitely getting nominated for Best Actress. I don't know if she will win, because she has some tight competition with Emma Stone this year. If she stayed in supporting, absolutely, I think she would have ran away with this Oscar. But as it stands, I think what she does here is still absolutely tremendous, and maybe one of my top 3 performances of the year so far. You are going to be seeing her in a lot after this. Just absolutely tremendous work from Lily Gladstone. And I will have to say, when it comes to the story, this is where things get very interesting, because obviously, this is one of the most important stories of the year, and I would say to a further extent one of the most important stories of all time, because if you look statistically at representation in the film industry, the most underrepresented population are indigenous peoples. And I think the fact that not only is this film so respectful to the culture of indigenous people and the Osage Native American tribe, but the fact that it not only grants that representation in a big way, but also tells the story of these people who are essentially erased from history, quite literally, and as well as their narratives. I mean, we've seen this time and time again with many minority groups, but I don't think the emphasis is placed enough on the Native American side of the story. And I think just in general, seeing what they had to go through, what these people had to experience, is beyond terrifying. Some of the most riveting scenes you'll see of the entire year, some of the most disturbing. It's just unbelievable what atrocities were committed against these people. And I think that's another reason why I love De Niro's portrayal so much, because he really is the devil who smiles in your face, and as opposed to something like The Zone of Interest, for example, if we're talking about Nazis and the Holocaust, at least the Nazis were like, oh, we hate the Jews, but like, the thing that's so interesting about this movie is that these people love them, and yet they are killing them, and I think that is even more evil than what they were doing, because the fact that someone would even have the capacity to commit an evil like that is just unfathomable in my mind. But you really see with De Niro's character, he really respects the culture and is quite frankly very, very educated on it. And in some ways, I suppose he uses that against him. It's very interesting because I feel like he kind of sees himself as an emancipator, almost like the lives of these people are in his hands. And it is just downright vile and disturbing what he perpetuates throughout this entire film. And I think it's also very interesting seeing, with Leonardo DiCaprio's character and the dynamic between him and Lily Gladstone, Ernest and Molly, because you can tell that this guy really loves his wife. But what he's doing in the story really makes you question, is this really love? And I think that's what Martin Scorsese does best, is really showing you these deplorable human beings and making you feel some shred of sympathy for them, as awful as they are. And I think that's what he does with the character of Ernest Burkhart here. But really, Molly Burkhart is the heart and soul of the whole movie. Maybe one of the only genuinely good things in this movie when it comes to characters. And I think that's why you're able to latch onto her. And here lies in some of the issues that I had. Because, I'll be honest, this film is 3.5 hours long. And both times I saw it, because I saw it in IMAX the first night, which was great. But I wasn't really as enthralled. I was a bit low energy. I wasn't falling asleep or anything. But I was like, damn it, I don't know how to feel about this movie. Let me go see it again in the morning. I know, quite a time commitment, right? And I went and saw it in the morning, and I was falling asleep. And this was the morning, so like I shouldn't have been falling asleep, and maybe it was something I don't know. I want to blame it on circumstance, but I also, this is why I'm so conflicted about this movie, because yes, from a screenplay standpoint, there isn't much I would remove, but I think the pacing of this film is so languid that it just kind of lulls you off into a dream realm at some points. I can only speak for myself, obviously, and granted, I want to give it another shot when it gets released on Apple TV+, but I just really found this film to be way too long and way too slow, as prevalent as all the information that is being given to us on screen is. I still felt that way. And look, also, another thing I have to say about this film is, I think, going back to the character of Molly, I wish that there was more of an incorporation of the Osage perspective in this film, because I get what Scorsese was going for, showing it from, the people who are committing these crimes, but at the same time, I feel like he could have had his cake and eaten it too, because I feel like you could have created that balance. Given Lily Gladstone as Molly more stuff to do, and had those contrasting perspectives that really would have made the film that more fleshed out. Because, yet again, it really feels like it is lacking a bit of perspective, especially because the relationship between her and Ernest, you really... I didn't fully buy into the fact that she would be, like, because she's way smarter than he is, and so I'm trying to understand what that connection was. And it wasn't, like, the worst thing, but regardless, I still would have liked to seen it from that perspective, see what she's experiencing, as opposed to just showing it from Leo's perspective more than anything. But yeah, I mean, more than anything, I just think that this film lacks the kineticism that makes, Goodfellas so engaging, that makes, let's say, even Raging Bull, as somber of a movie that is, or Wolf of Wall Street, because that's 3-hour film and it flies by. Like, you hardly feel the running time at all. And I just feel the way this film is paced is not particularly successful in regards to making the audience invested. Yet again, I said I can only speak for myself, but I know people have had similar issues. I didn't have that issue with Oppenheimer when I went back and saw it again. I feel like for 3 hours long, just the snappy dialogue, the political intrigue really draws you in a way that I feel like this film kind of doesn't. And in that sense, I think Christopher Nolan is going to take home the Oscar Gold this year. I really do. Especially, one, because it is his time, but two, I just think Oppenheimer's a slightly better directed movie. And that's not to take away from the masterful craft that's on display here. But I just found this to be a little boring. And granted, like, this, I'm disappointed. I really am. But here's the thing, like, I'm going to watch it again once it hits Apple TV Plus, once I make sure I'm in an energetic mood, and I'm going to see if it plays the same way. Because look, don't be surprised if this doesn't make my top 10 of the year, and don't be surprised if it does later on. I'm certainly willing to, come back and check it out all over again. But as I said, everything in this film is just exceptional. The production design is amazing. The score by the late Robbie Robertson, his last film, his last collaboration with Martin Scorsese, really does some beautiful work, especially in the first quarter of this movie, which, quite frankly, the first quarter of this movie, I would say, is the best movie of the year. Really, I mean that 100%. But just the way he opens it with these, this amazing slide guitar, very percussive instrumentation underneath. I really love how this film opens up in many ways, and I think Robertson's score has a lot to do with that. I hope he gets nominated for an Oscar. If not, okay, I understand, but even so, to honor such a legendary musician as Robbie Robertson would be absolutely phenomenal for him to get his first and final Oscar nomination. And I really loved what he did here. But yet again, I gotta go back to the themes of this movie, because this ending of this film will leave you gobsmacked. The first time I saw it, I was so blown away by it. And I think the very end of this film, how Scorsese chooses to wrap up this story, is going to have some people conflicted. But after thinking about what he did and why, I think it's incredibly thought-provoking and really something to sit with and think about, because what he has to say about the history of this event, I think, is really something that is very true to the narratives that have been essentially erased throughout time and what they've been relegated to. And I also think just this story is so compelling. It's a great character study, especially of Ernest Burkhart, because, he even, he's very much obsessed with money. He even says at one point, I love money almost as much as I love my wife. And that really is something that this film explores, and in very disturbing and harrowing ways. And, even from the beginning of this film, the way you hear these characters talking to each other, there's something so nefarious in what they're saying. And I just absolutely love how bleak, how disturbing this film is, because I think people need to know this story. And I really hope that this brings to light other stories from other indigenous peoples brought to the big screen, because I think stuff like this is very important. And if Scorsese keeps making movies to this high of a technical level, I'm going to keep coming back from. I'm even going to come back to this one, like I said, because I just had a very tainted experience, and I hope it plays off again. But yet again, this film isn't perfect, I would have to say. And, just some things that people are going to have problems with. And it's understandable, But regardless, I could completely understand why anyone would say this is the best movie of the year. But for me, it fell a little bit flat, unfortunately. So I'm going to give Killers of the Flower Moon an 8 out of 10. A very high one at that. Absolutely should see this film on the biggest screen possible if you can. Because it is a beyond important film. And it's Martin Scorsese. I mean, come on. If you're watching my channel, you must love movies here. So really, please check this out on the biggest screen possible. And yeah, guys, that's my review of Killers of the Flower Moon. What did you think about this film? comment down below what you thought, and of course smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Going to be a lot more movie reviews coming this week, some classic films, one of which might be in theaters right now, so definitely be on the lookout for those. And yeah guys, definitely going to be a lot more Oscar contenders, a lot more content just in general coming down the pipeline very soon. So in the meantime, you guys take it easy and I'll talk to you later.